Thank you very much for having me. My name is Gerald Clift, and I work with the Rescue California Educational Foundation, and we advocate smaller legislative districts in California. We do this for a few reasons. We believe that it would increase constituent access to legislators, and so they can address community issues better and concerns that they're worried about, and we think that it would reduce special interest money in these races as well. But California right now has the largest legislative districts in the country, by far. Our lower house, our state assembly, is one member for every 450,000 people. On the other end of the spectrum, we have New Hampshire. Their lower house is one member for every 3,000 people. It costs an average of $600,000 to win a race in California's lower house. It costs an average of $793 to win a race in New Hampshire's lower house. It's a huge disparity in the amount of money that it costs. And there's about 12 states like New Hampshire's, these small districts, one for every 10,000 or less in the lower house. There's Vermont, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, a few others. But the nationwide average is about one for every 50,000. The next largest down from California is Texas, and they're still a third of what ours is. So the problem's really bad here, but it didn't always used to be this way. In 1880, we used to be one member for every 10,000 or lower house. We just haven't adjusted for over 100 years. Similarly, the U.S. House of Representatives used to be one member for every 40,000 people, and they adjusted a few times over the course of our history, I think about 3 times. But once they got to 435, they just stopped. The problem with these large districts, aside from the amount of money it costs, is you can't really represent that many people effectively, and people lose a voice to address community concerns that they're interested in. For example, I've never met anyone who thinks it's a good idea for us to take the gas tax money and use it for everything but roads. But every year, almost every year, they seem to do that. And it's gotten so bad that there was an NBC News article about how it costs about $700 an average Bay Area driver just because the roads are so bad, the damage is done to them. And to that point, when I was driving down to a Kiwanis meeting 3 days ago, on 680, someone ran over a pothole, rock about the size of a quarter, hit my windshield. I got a little hole there right now. So it's a major problem, but then there's even more alarming problems, like at the federal level is a good example. Social Security, a fund that we trusted the government to keep track of and gain interest for years. They've been raiding every Congress since 1880, that fund. And it's gotten so bad they've actually taken $2.3 trillion, according to a recent CNN article and a Government Accountability Office report. $2.3 trillion has been taken from that fund and spent on other programs, so that it's all gone. We're actually paying out more than it's coming in now, and all that money that's supposed to be getting interest is just, now they say that they have to borrow from other programs. But the special interest aspect is also really bad in California as well. We had a recent Senator Calderon example. According to Sacramento Bee, he allegedly took tens of thousands of dollars from the FBI pretending to be a Hollywood lobbyist so that they could get special exemptions carved into law for themselves. Another example, it's probably more of a stain on California, is Assemblyman Duvall a few years ago was caught on open mic in a subcommittee bragging about having sex with a lobbyist who was married. The implication being that she had gotten favors for that transaction. There was a good LA Times article about that if you're interested. But unfortunately, our system encourages this type of behavior because when you need $600,000 to win a race, you can't look the other way when someone offers you thousands of dollars to vote a certain way. If you only need $793 to win a race, you can look the other way because you don't need that person's money. And more importantly, your district is so small, you can go door to door and refute any attack ads on you that misrepresent your position. So what we're advocating, what we're excited about, is a Neighborhood Legislature initiative. Now, this is an initiative that is going to be on the 2014 ballot in California in November. And it would take all of California's state assembly districts and carve 100 mini districts into all of them. And then it would take all of our state senate districts and carve 100 mini districts in all of those as well. So that we'd have one member for every 5,000 in the assembly, one member for every 10,000 in the state senate, creating about 8,000 people in the assembly and 4,000 in the state senate. So you should immediately think to yourself, whoa, that's a lot of people. And it is. And the way that we prevent the chaos of thousands of people introducing bills and co-sponsoring bills and doing amendments is that we use the existing districts that were drawn by the Citizens Redistricting Commission and the 100 people that would be within all those, and have them choose one person amongst themselves to go to Sacramento and work on a working committee modeled off of today's subcommittee system. So today you vote for assemblymen, but you don't get to vote on who's in the public safety subcommittee. The group of assembly members choose amongst themselves about 10 people to go on the public safety subcommittee, and that subcommittee acts as a barrier for legislation before it goes to the larger body. So similarly, the working committee system would have working committee members in Sacramento voting to send legislation to the larger body of the 8,000 in the Assembly and the 4,000 in the state Senate before it gets sent to the governor. But by having that system, we're not going to have to pay $120,000 to each one of these members. We're only going to pay the neighborhood legislators $1,000 and the working committee members $50,000. Now, $1,000 doesn't sound like a lot of money, but in New Hampshire, they get paid $100 a year for doing a lot more work. They have to drive to the Capitol, they have to write bills, they have to do amendments, they have to sit on subcommittees. These neighborhood legislators are going to get paid 10 times as much, $1,000, and they get to vote from home. They have 10 days to vote on legislation after it comes out of the work committee, and they're not going to be driving to the Capitol. They're not going to be writing bills, doing amendments, any of that intricate work that's involved with legislation. So that way we maintain the system where you have easy access to your legislators, we don't create chaos because of California's size. But what's really important is that the states that have implemented this system, those recent Rose Institute study that was done on these about 12 states I mentioned, they tend to be a lot less partisan in their legislation. They introduce less bills, but they pass more of them, so you see less symbolic types of legislation. You have more ideological diversity. People aren't feel like they're forced to fit into a box, Republican or box as Democrat. They can actually talk about issues individually. And you have more gender diversity. New Hampshire, for example, has the smallest districts in the country. Their lower house is 39% women, and they're the only state in the country that I'm aware of that ever had a state senate that was majority women. So you have a lot of good advantages that come with this type of a system. And aside from the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, you can actually talk about issues with people. That's what's really important. I mean, let's break it down for a second. If you have a district of 5,000 people, and only about 20% of people in a district actually vote, it's about 1,000 people, and if there are only 2 people running, you only got to convince 500 people that you're the right candidate. That really changes how campaigns are run. Because you go door to door, you get very specific about your issues, not trying to be vague to appeal to a giant mass of people that you can't communicate with. And if you get negative attack ads on you, via mail or TV or otherwise, despite those thousands of dollars being spent, you can refute it by going door to door and saying, here's my cell phone number, let's talk about the issues individually before you decide a certain way on my position. And that's really important because in New Hampshire they do give out their cell phone numbers. Here it's pretty hard to get access to your state legislator. I don't know if any of you have tried, but at best you usually get a response from an intern. But on the other side of that coin, I've sat down with my board supervisor. I don't agree with him on virtually anything, but fresh out of high school, let me sit down with him. I got to record him, interview him for an hour, because he knows that I can get him out of office. His district is small enough that I can go door to door and get him out of office. Not true for state assembly or state senate. Running for state senate in California is like running for governor of North and South Dakota at the same time. It's incredibly difficult. And there was a recent MapLight survey which goes over the cost of campaigns in California. It found that it costs about $950 a day. You have to raise about $950 a day to run for the state assembly. That's more than you have to raise on average for the entire race in New Hampshire. So these are the types of barriers that we have right now and types of issues we can address with this type of a system. And I'm here today to first introduce the idea to you and see what you think of it, and also ask that if you're interested, sign up. We'll keep you updated via email of what's going on with the initiative. We just got a legislative analyst office report a few days ago saying that it would save about $1 billion over the course of a decade. And we just got permission from the Attorney General's office yesterday to start gathering signatures. So we'll keep you up to date and let you know if you want to help in any way, what you can do to help, whether it just be telling a friend or gathering a few signatures or just signing so it qualifies for the ballot. And I'm going to answer any questions you have about it. So do you have any questions right now?
I know that the legislature has started functioning a lot better here recently.
Right.
And especially with respect to budget issues and that sort of thing. And a lot of the credit, at least the analysts that I've read, seem to think that it goes towards the fact that this nonpartisan commission, excuse me, redrew all the boundaries. So I'm wondering how your concept of government would how would that enhance what's already been done
I'm glad you brought that up because our initiative, which is on our website, but also the Attorney General's website, explicitly states that the same Citizens Redistricting Commission that drew those districts is going to draw all these tiny districts. So we want to, it is a much less partisan district. They used to be very gerrymandered so that they would be one party or the other, and they've been drawn so that they're not like that. So we're having the same group draw these new districts as well.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, or are you still kind
Yeah,
of?
that very much. Yeah.
Okay, I'm curious how all of this is going to be paid for, because I know what it costs to staff up an office for a legislator.
Very expensive.
Yeah, and so if you're going to staff up now for, 12 times as many legislators or whatever, what is going to be the cost benefit of this?
I'm sorry, I didn't explain that
Yeah.
part very well. So the ward committee members, they're going to still have the staff, but the neighborhood legislators from home, they're not going to have staff. And we're going to cut their staff by 50%. Part of the rationale for that is we're not going to need district offices when now they have 100 people in their district ready to answer constituents' concerns. And we did the math. If the amount of people who contact their state assemblyman was about the same as it is after this, we got 35 per month. So these neighborhood legislators will be responding about one constituent request per day. We don't think that's unreasonable, but the way we pay for it is we're paying them $1,000 a year instead of like $120,000. We're cutting the staff in half, and we're reducing their operating budget by 50%. I guess it's the same as the staff operating budget of 50%. So the Legislative Analyst's Office, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. They're a
Yes.
nonpartisan organization for anyone that's not, that is a bunch of California employees. You can look at lao.ca.gov. They do analyses on all legislation, whether it be state senate, state assembly, or initiatives being proposed. And they found that this would save $1 billion over the course of a decade. And the reason I use it over the course of a decade because there is an initial, I think, about a few $100 million cost of drawing these new districts. But because of those reductions in cost to their pay and reduction in cost to staff, it actually ends up saving money over the long haul. I mean, $1 billion isn't a lot, but it's better than costing them.
Right.
Does that answer your concern about the cost?
Excuse me.
Does that answer your
Yeah.
concern about cost?